Germany, 1573. You are 19 years old and your father is about to hand you the family trade. Not farming, not woodworking, killing. Your father was once a free man, a woodsman, until a local prince ordered him, on pain of death, to execute 2 men. He obeyed. And in that single afternoon, he stopped being an honorable man forever in the eyes of everyone he had ever known. Now it's your turn to pick up the sword. And once you do, something strange is going to happen. You are about to become one of the most feared men in the city, one of the richest, and one of the only people alive with absolutely no way out. This is the true story of Frantz Schmidt, the executioner of Nuremberg, and to understand how a single order could trap a family for generations, you first have to understand what his father actually signed away. In the towns and cities of early modern Germany, society ran on a strict, unspoken ranking system called honor. Merchants had it, craftsmen had it. Even beggars, technically, had more of it than one specific group at the very bottom. The unehrlich, the dishonorable. This wasn't an insult. It was closer to a legal caste. Gravediggers had it, tanners had it, barber surgeons had it, and executioners had the worst of it by far. An executioner couldn't join a guild, couldn't hold civic office, couldn't marry into an honorable family, and in some towns, couldn't even drink from the same cup at a tavern. Just touching him by accident in the street was enough to threaten your own good name. The dishonor didn't stay with the man who earned it either. It was hereditary. It passed to his children and their children like a disease with no cure. Which meant that the moment Frantz Schmidt's father swung that sword, he didn't just damn himself, he damned his son to the only trade left available to him. No honorable guild would apprentice the boy. No respectable family would let their daughter marry him. The Schmidts weren't choosing a career. They were being sealed into one, generation after generation, with the door welded shut behind them. So Frantz did the only thing available to a dishonorable man with nowhere else to go. He trained under his father, and at 19 years old, he performed his first execution, alone, in the small town of Hof. Word of his skill spread fast. 5 years later, in 1578, one of the most powerful free cities in the entire Holy Roman Empire came calling. Nuremberg needed a new executioner, and Frantz Schmidt took the job that would define the rest of his life. Here's where the story gets strange, because being unehrlich didn't mean being poor. It meant the opposite. Nuremberg paid its executioner a fixed salary on top of a fee for every single job. And Frantz didn't just perform executions. He was also the city's official torturer, extracting confessions under contract and its enforcer of corporal punishment, whippings, brandings, the amputation of ears and fingers for lesser crimes. Every one of those had a price tag. On top of that came the side income almost nobody talks about. A hanged man's rope, cut into inch-long pieces, was believed across Europe to bring luck at the gambling table, and executioners sold it for real money. Decades later, some hangmen were still charging a fee just to press a freshly executed man's hand against a customer's diseased skin, a folk cure people genuinely paid for. The most despised man in the city was very often one of the wealthiest people in it, feared everywhere, welcome nowhere, and paid extremely well for both. Frantz Schmidt did something almost no one in his position ever did. He kept a diary. Across 45 years, he logged 361 executions and 345 lesser punishments in his own precise handwriting: the date, the name, the crime, the method. The sword was the clean death, reserved for those who still had some shred of honor left to preserve, and a botched beheading could turn the executioner himself into the target of a furious mob. The rope was for ordinary thieves. The breaking wheel, which shattered every major bone before death, was reserved for the very worst offenders. Burning, in Frantz's entire career, happened only twice. He treated every single one as a matter of professional precision because, for a dishonorable man, skill was the only kind of honor left available to him. And that skill led him somewhere nobody expected. Executioners cut open more bodies than almost any physician of the era. They knew exactly how joints worked, how bones broke and healed, how flesh responded to injury, because inflicting and repairing damage were often the same job. So Frantz began quietly treating the sick, setting broken bones, prescribing herbs, stitching wounds. No university-trained doctor in Nuremberg would touch, because peasants who couldn't afford a real physician could always afford the executioner. The same hands that turned the wheel became, for hundreds of ordinary people, the only medical care they would ever receive. When Frantz Schmidt finally retired in 1617, after 45 years, he didn't fade into disgrace. He opened a full-time medical practice. He treated more than 15,000 patients. And at 70 years old, the boy who was handed a sword because his father had no other choice sat down and wrote a 13-page personal petition to the Holy Roman Emperor himself, asking for one thing: to have his family's honor formally, legally restored. The emperor said yes. So one order from one frightened prince turned a free woodsman into an executioner, turned an executioner into a father with nothing to leave his son but the family trade, turned a 19-year-old boy into the most feared, most precise, most secretly essential man in one of Germany's greatest cities, and in the end turned an executioner into a physician with an emperor's own signature to prove it. When Frantz Schmidt died in 1634, his gravestone didn't record 361 executions. It recorded one word: doctor. So the next time a job makes you feel a little too isolated, remember the Nuremberg executioner who spent 45 years unable to quit the one trade the world would let him have, and still managed to die remembered for saving people instead of ending them. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe.